Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Zoomers. And good morning, those here. Oh, I see Jerry Smalley on there. Hi, Jerry. Wow, I wish you were here in person. I would hug your neck. Yay. Oh, I would hug everybody else. Hi. Okay, hi, everybody. I'm Sarah McFall. I'm your facilitator today. It's a privilege to be here. I'm grateful to see all these wonderful faces and people I know and people I haven't met yet, people I used to be best friends with, maybe in another life. This morning I'm going to read a poem by Debbie Perlman. It's from her book, Flames to Heaven, New Psalms, Healing and Praise. It's called One. Listen, because I know you will hear me. As I fear this unknown, I must enter, surrendering myself, my authority, if only for a brief while. Listen, because I know you will hear as I praise you at the season, spreading warmth of renewal over cold earth, even as my soul's chill is warmed. Listen, because I know you are there, hearing me, warming me, renewing me, leading me through this time to a place of health and vigor and love. Thank you, Debbie Perlman. And now I invite you to join me in reading our vision statement on the front of your songbook or on the screen. Our Sunday gathering is designed to provide a weekly encouragement to individually manifest our highest good and purpose in our lives. Inner direction is the key. We reinforce positive directions for our lives and the infinite potential within us. We seek connections to create an open atmosphere of acceptance of all backgrounds, races, and lifestyles. We come together in a spirit of inclusiveness, embracing all spiritual paths, honoring God in an atmosphere of unconditional love. And now let's stand up and let's sing. We'll raise our voices together. And we are going to sing Turn, Turn, Turn on page 49. And then we're going to turn around and we're going to embrace our friends and have our meet and greet.
There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to love, a time
was lovely. That was really lovely. Thank you, everyone, for hugs and good conversation. Thank you for the ceiling fan. Yes, yeah, right. Okay, Now, because we're going to sit and chill and we're going to relax a little bit, we're going to listen. And our chant is listen, and it is
Not
paid.
yet. We're going to do a special song.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, this is why we have a facilitator training coming up next week.
We're all in D, right? Can we put this on? I got troubles over, not today, 'cause they're gonna wash away, they're gonna wash away. And I have sins, Lord, but not today, 'cause they're gonna wash away. They're gonna wash away. And I had friends over, not today, 'cause they done washed away. They done washed away. We get along, Lord, but not today, 'cause we gonna wash away, we gonna wash away. And I got troubles over, not today, 'cause they're gonna wash away. This old heart is gonna take them away.
Jeffrey Birch on vocals and keyboards. Yes, Frank Lawrence, Daryl Clark, and Ken Nicholas, our awesome Morning Star band. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to listen. And it's on page 59, I think. And after that, Charlotte Hayes will come up and lead us in a meditation.
Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget you. I will
Sit comfortably, shoulders back, connecting upper body to the sky and feet grounded on the earth. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Now imagine a soft, gentle light streaming down above your head. Breathe in, I am here. Breathe out, I am beloved. Breathe in, I am here. Breathe out, I am beloved. Now with eyes still closed, bring to mind one thing you are thankful for from the past 24 hours. Think about why this moment brought you joy. Allow the feeling of gratitude to wash all over your body. Breathe in deeply. Pause. Breathe out. Let the emotions of that moment fill your heart. Now, ask God for 2 spiritual things needed for today and the future. Take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Quietly say to yourself, my cup overflows. And so it is.
Thank you, Charlotte. That was lovely. I couldn't limit it to 2.
It was a Jewish meditation, by the way. I Googled Jewish meditation.
I Googled Jewish poems. You know, that's how we learn. And speaking of learning, our speaker today, Laurie, and let me get to where, of course, I don't read the whole thing, but I am going to say that Laurie, she's, we had your bio on Morningstar, but I went to Amazon, where your book was. Yeah, so her book's on Amazon. If you don't buy it here, buy it on Amazon. Laurie Schneider is a library professional, a bookseller and former editor who lives and breathes middle grade literature. I love that. Lives and breathes middle grade literature. And her book, Gittel, is her most recent creation. So Laurie is coming to us with her Wisconsin background, and but she and her husband live here in Oklahoma now, and she is a bookseller at Barnes & Noble. So let's go visit her. Laurie, come and give us your talk.
Actually, bookselling is my part-time gig. I work full-time in the library at Oklahoma City University as well. So I am surrounded by books, words, and book people who are the best people. I don't know if you know how I got here was I met Sakra. 'Twas the night before Hanukkah, and Sakra was having a dreidel emergency. And I happened to be working at Barnes & Noble that night and was able to help her find an emergency dreidel. And we started talking, and that's how I'm here. Thank you so much to Sakra and to Morningstar for having me here. I am so excited to share this story and this history with you. I have a lot of ground to cover, so I am just going to jump right in here. This morning, I'm going to use my book, Gittel, Historical Fiction, based on my family history as a jumping off point to talk about a place that is dear to me and a piece of the Jewish American story that you've probably never heard before. Do not worry if you have not read my book. I'm going to fill you in as we go. I'll tell you about the story. I will tell you about the history behind the story, how I came to write it, and then what I learned about my family and myself, a daughter of a Jewish immigrant. Sakra specifically asked me to talk about my spiritual journey. I'm not going to talk so much about where I am right at this present moment, and I will apologize if this talk seems to lean more towards history and less towards spirit. But for me, this journey has been really grounded in history, both my immediate family's history and also the broader history of Ashkenazi Jews who came from the Russian Empire. Hence the title of my talk, Lador Vador. That is a Hebrew phrase that means from generation to generation. So I'd like to begin with, I'm going to show you a little book trailer just to give you a feel for the book. Gittel was inspired by a real place and a real people. Set in 1911, the book tells the story of 13-year-old Gittel Borenstein, a skinny, sharp-tongued, frizzy-haired, poetry-loving Jewish girl who doesn't always do or say the right thing, but can recite Emily Dickinson at the drop of a hat. She and her family have left Eastern Europe, escaping the deadly Kishinev pogrom, to start over as members of a small Jewish farming colony in Mill Creek, Wisconsin. A small and very non-Jewish town of 400 people and 1,000 cows, or that's how Gittel describes it in the story. The story follows Gittel and her family, her extended family, through 3 seasons as they struggle to make a living, keep their faith, and find their place in a new town in a new world. Imagine Fiddler on the Roof meets Little Town on the Prairie. Gittel's story touches on issues of immigration and assimilation, anti-Semitism and acceptance, women's suffrage, empathy and compassion, and the importance of public education, issues that are as relevant to us today as they were to Gittel's family in 1911, and perhaps in some ways even more relevant. The town that I've called Mill Creek in the book is actually a fictional version of a real place, Arpin, Wisconsin, where there was indeed once a Jewish farm colony and where my great-grandfather, Alvin Garber, lived and farmed for 5 years. The arrow way up there on the left with the red pin is where Arpin, Wisconsin is. If you look slightly below and to the right, you'll see a town called Wisconsin Rapids. That is where I was born and lived until I graduated from high school. To orient you, you can see Milwaukee down there on Lake Michigan, so Chicago's just below there. So that is actually central Wisconsin. While most of the people and events in this book are fictional, the places and historical details are as real as I could make them, and the characters of Gittel and many of her family members were inspired by 3 generations of my own family, especially my great-grandparents, Alvin and Fanny Garber, you'll hear me talk about them, and my mother, Gloria, who was called Gittel when she came to this country at age 2 from Romania. Gittel is a young woman beginning to question who she is and where she fits in this world as a woman, as a Jew, and as an immigrant. And her constant navigation of the pull of assimilation and the tug of heritage is not all that different from what my mother and I faced growing up in a place where our family stood out as different. And that's an experience I will circle back to at the end of this talk. So how did I come to write this story? It all goes back to my great-grandpa, Alvin Garber, and one question. How the heck did my Orthodox Jewish great-grandfather, who'd made his living as a cantor in the old country, the person who sings or chants the prayers in synagogue, end up on a farm in central Wisconsin, in a part of the state with really no Jewish population? Answering that question requires a brief history lesson. Slide. So if you'll step with me into the Wayback Machine, we are not going to go to 1972, however. We are going to 1881 in the Russian Empire. Slide. This is a map of the area in western Russia, western part of the Russian Empire that was known as the Pale of Settlement. And this is a map around 1880. The Russian Empire was huge, bigger than it is now, and this part of the Pale encompasses a good part of Ukraine, all of Moldova, all of Belarus, and parts of Lithuania and Poland as well. A brief note, the arrow on there, down there, the orange arrow is pointing to Kishinev. Kishinev you will not see on a modern map, however it still exists. It is called Chisinau, and it is the capital of Moldova, and that is where my mother was born. So why are we talking about the Pale? Well, the Pale was the only part of the Russian Empire where Jews were permitted to live. And in 1880, there were 5 million Jews who lived in the Pale of Settlement. Keep that number in your head. They could live there, but they weren't allowed to own land, and nor were they allowed to participate in certain occupations, among them farming. And within the Pale, Jews could only live in certain towns and certain cities, and the majority lived in small villages called shtetls, like the shtetl of Anatevka, where Tevye and his family live in Fiddler on the Roof, or the shtetl of Gorishkovka, which is where my great-grandmother Fanny lived. The Pale was not, however, just for the Jews. Non-Jewish peasants lived there as well. They were not subject to the same restrictions that the Jewish folks had. So why am I talking about, in particular, 1881? That was the year that the Tsar enacted a new law that gave non-Jewish peasants living in the Pale the right to demand the eviction and expulsion of any Jew for any reason. And that law lit a fuse that sparked violence across the Pale. While this law did not legalize pogroms, which are organized violence against Jews, it opened the door to them, and the Tsar made no effort to close it. And pogroms regularly swept through the shtetls, putting every Jew in fear for their lives. The violence of pogroms included property destruction, rape, murder, and mass murder. Entire shtetls were set on fire, including the one where my great-grandmother lived, while waiting for her husband to send money so that she and their 2 sons could join him in Arpen, Wisconsin, where he wrote to her he had acquired a nice farm. Their daughter, Jenya, my grandmother, a young teenager at that time, was sent to live with relatives in a neighboring city, ostensibly because the shtetl had no school for her to attend, but primarily to keep her safe from the Cossacks who routinely terrorized the Jews living there. Life was simply too perilous for a young woman at that time in the shtetls. Soldiers would routinely turn up in the villages demanding food and money or any valuables you possessed, and denying them could get you beat up or worse. My great-grandmother, my inspiration for the character of Bubby in Gittel, was a tiny and soft-spoken woman who would try to appease the Cossacks when they showed up at her door, making them tea, giving them food, shining their shoes. And she still ended up with a broken tooth where a Cossack punched her, and a scar on her finger where they wrenched a ring off of her finger. And when my great-grandmother finally did make it to America and departed the train in Milwaukee, where her husband was waiting to meet her after 8 years of separation, rather than the happy reunion you might anticipate, she had a panic attack because she saw people running on the train, rushing on the train platform, and she thought it was a pogrom. In 1881, as I said, there were 5 million Jews living in the Pale. And in 1881, after that law was enacted, 2 million of them came to the United States in a period of about 35 years. All of them, including my mother's family, came here seeking safety and opportunity. And where did most of them end up? Slide. Here. New York City, the Lower East Side. They flooded into New York City. And this, as you might imagine, created a tremendous problem for the immigrants, for the city, and for the broader Jewish community in the United States. Desperate overcrowding, tenements with, just packed with people, poor sanitation, illness, and very limited employment opportunities besides peddling goods in the streets or trying to get a factory job. And with those problems came another problem, a rise in anti-Semitism. And that made life difficult for all the Jews, not just these recent Russian arrivals. It also caused problems for the Jews who'd been here for decades, the ones who came mostly from Western Europe, not Eastern Europe, and had been here for decades, were settled in occupations and careers, and felt pretty well integrated and accepted into American culture. And it was that group who came up with a solution, or a partial solution to this problem. They created and they funded organizations that worked to disperse these recently arrived immigrants, helping them to resettle and find work in cities across the country, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, St. Louis, San Francisco, Milwaukee. But there was another Jewish organization that took a slightly different approach. They were the Agricultural Aid Society. And rather than sending these immigrants to cities, They relocated small groups of Jewish families to homesteads in rural America with the dream of speeding assimilation. That was always the goal, to become as American as quickly as possible. And what could be more American than working the American soil? And that is how the Arpin colony came to be. The Milwaukee branch of the Agricultural Aid Society purchased 720 acres of timberland in central Wisconsin. And on December 1st, 1904, 10 Jewish families arrived in Arpin. So welcome to Arpin, or Mill Creek as I call it in my book. Imagine having survived the pogroms in Russia and maybe lived in the Lower East Side for a matter of months maybe. And now you find yourself here on a train platform in the middle of winter where the land you're supposed to farm is covered with trees and the ground between the trees is buried in snow. You barely know any English and probably know even less about farming because you weren't allowed to own land or farm when you came from Russia. Those settlers must have had a healthy dose of chutzpah and hope and determination. And here is where my journey with Gittel begins. It begins in Arpin. I was a graduate student in American Studies at Washington State University in the 1990s when I started researching Jewish agricultural colonies for a research methods class. I'd always been fascinated by utopian communities and back to the land movements, and I was surprised to learn of this movement, which I had never heard of. And at one time, there were 40 of these colonies in various places in the United States, stretching from New Jersey to Oregon. It wasn't until I actually began reading what little was written about these colonies that I realized that my great-grandfather Alvin hadn't been the only Jew farming in Arpin, and that he was, in fact, a part of this movement that I was studying. When it came time to write my master's thesis, I tossed around ideas with my thesis advisor, a poet named Alex Quo, and figured I would write another academic paper expanding on maybe what I learned from my reading. But when Alex found out that my background was in poetry and had a personal connection to one of these colonies, he suggested that I write a collection of poetry instead, and encouraged me to use my family history to explore broader ideas of place and identity. Alex said something that haunted me, and he never really explained it. He quoted a line of poetry by Phil George, an indigenous poet from the nearby Nez Perce tribe in North Idaho. You take care of your past. Take care of your past. I wasn't sure what that meant. Nevertheless, I got to work on my thesis and my poems. And that summer, I was pregnant with my first child. My husband and I went to visit my mom, who was still living in central Wisconsin, and I decided it was probably time that I go see Arpin for myself. I wanted to see where my great-grandfather lived and had hoped to find what remained of the colony's synagogue, which I'd been told had been bought and incorporated into Ole Snortheim's farmhouse. Yes, Ole Snortheim, it's a real name. In Arpin, I stopped at Dupe's Bar to ask directions to Ole's house. This is Wisconsin, so no matter how small the town, there is going to be a bar or two or three. And one of the men at Dupe's kindly directed me to a white farmhouse about a mile up the road. I hopped back into the car, found the address, hopped out of the car, and snapped a photo of what I believed to be my great-grandfather's synagogue turned farmhouse. And here's what I saw. A nicely kept farmhouse with a little wishing well in the yard, a nice white farmhouse indistinguishable from all the other nice white farmhouses in town. It was a beautiful day, kind of actually like today. hot and dry, maybe just a hint of a breeze, and no sound except for some birds and the clicking of grasshoppers in the grass. Not a trace of the almost 80 Jews who once lived, worked, and worshiped there. And I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. Not so much that they were gone, but that they'd been forgotten. Their stories had been forgotten. I can't say that that was the moment when I decided I vowed to write Gittel, but I do think standing there, I finally began to understand what Alex meant when he told me to take care of my past. I felt something, a nudge, a whisper, a sense that my ancestors needed something from me. And I suppose that is the moment where history and spirit began to connect for me, though it took me a long time for me to understand and take that message to heart. Back in the car, I jotted down a few lines that became a couple of poems about the Arbin colony and that went into my thesis. And that was that. Years passed. And occasionally I would pull out those Arbin poems and think of those colonists, their memory growing fainter by the day. And I'd think, someone needs to write about this place and these people before it's too late. And eventually, one day I opened a fresh page in my notebook, and that someone became me. And that's how Gittel came to be. People who've read Gittel are often surprised to learn that I was raised in a non-observant home. If you read Gittel or hear me talk about it, Gittel's family are observant Jews, deeply connected to their faith and practice, especially Gittel's grandparents, while Gittel's mama and papa, while observant, are a little more flexible, willing to adapt to their new circumstances. And then there's Gittel, who at 13 years old is full of questions and dreams and even dares to wonder, would the world really fall apart if a Jewish girl were to fall in love with a non-Jewish boy? This gradual loosening of practice is what happened to many families, mine included. By the time I came along, my older observant relatives had left central Wisconsin for larger cities where they could find the Jewish community that they had been missing. My great-grandparents went to San Diego, where my great-grandfather Albin returned to being a cantor until his retirement. And my grandmother, a widow, moved to Milwaukee, where she found fellowship in her synagogue sisterhood. But my little branch of the family stayed in Wisconsin Rapids, where my father had a plumbing and heating supply business. Rapids was a blue-collar town surrounded by paper mills, an all-white, all-Christian, all-church-going community. I did not know a single kid or classmate who didn't attend church, and I often attended church-related things with them. In junior high, I sang in the youth choir at the First Congregational Church, where my best friend was her father was the minister. Needless to say, with one Jewish family in town, there was no synagogue. And I can't say honestly that if there had been one, that my parents would have attended. In fact, I suspect they wouldn't, or at least not regularly. The actor Harrison Ford of Star Wars fame, who had a Jewish mother and a Catholic father, was once asked if he was raised Jewish, to which he replied, "I was raised Democrat." And that, I'm not going to make it. And that describes my family to a T. My mom was very proud of her Jewish heritage, and she never hid it, but she also didn't show really any interest in practicing or reestablishing the things that she had probably gotten from her childhood. In an oral history she recorded in her latter years, she said her girlhood dream was to become a real American girl. And you'll hear that sentiment in the opening pages of my book. While my parents may not have passed down the letter of the Jewish law, the 613 mitzvot in the Torah, they did pass on and embody the spirit of the law, the values and ethical underpinnings of social justice, compassion, and expectation that you work to improve yourself and the world that you're in. I'm going to jet ahead a little bit here because I know we're short on time. My mom was a bit of a firebrand. She was an early environmental activist who fought for regulation of the paper mills that were polluting the Wisconsin River where we grew up. My father was very active in state politics as well. I, however, did not inherit my mother's confidence. So I was a pretty shy, quiet child who often sat in the back of the classroom. And while I was never told not to talk about being Jewish, after a couple of experiences, even in first grade, you come back to school and everyone says, what did Santa bring you for Christmas? And I think I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I said, well, I didn't get any presents because we don't celebrate Christmas. And when I saw the astonished look on their faces and their jaws dropped, I just learned maybe it was better if I didn't say anything. And so I mostly didn't until I was in 6th grade social studies, and a teacher named Beatrice Smith, who was a very formidable woman, known for her strictness, and her smile was about as stiff as her lacquered bouffant. I don't remember what we were talking about in class, and I was sitting in the back of the class, and all of a sudden Beatrice says, Laurie, could you tell us the meaning of Hanukkah? And my cheeks were burning, and my ears were ringing, and my heart was pounding. And eventually, when I quieted down, I shook my head no. Not because I didn't want to, although I probably really didn't want to, but because I couldn't. I really couldn't explain the meaning of Hanukkah because I didn't know it. But my initial response when she called on me was, how does my teacher know I am Jewish? What I came to see at that age, when I was age 11, was that it didn't really matter what kind of Jew I was, whether my family was practicing or non-practicing, whether I felt Jewish or not, whether I knew what it meant to be Jewish or not. To everyone in town, we were Jewish. I was Jewish. And it came, gradually to me that in a town where nobody knows what it means to be Jewish and is probably not known a Jewish person, that they were free to draw their own conclusions based on what they may have heard, stereotypes, prejudice, whatever they may hear in church or at home from a parent. And I began to realize that if I didn't figure out what it meant to me to be Jewish, I was always going to be at the mercy of someone else's notions and misconceptions. So like my character Gittel, I was going to need to figure out who I was and where I fit in. It seems that it has taken me a better part of my life and a book to come to a better understanding of my childhood and the decisions my parents made to raise me outside the Jewish community. You might say that Gittel was my coming out story. For anyone in my life who doesn't know I'm Jewish or how much being Jewish means to me, this book is in part my answer. So needless to say, I've come a long way from being that fraidy cat at the back of the classroom. But Gittel has been a big part of that journey for me. Writing this book was a joy because I got to spend time through the magic of fiction with my family again. I felt like I could hear my grandfather's thick Yiddish accent and smell my grandma's challah baking, and my strong-willed, stylish grandma Jen, who always wore stilettos to go shopping at Gimbel's in Milwaukee, and a teenage version of my mother, who I found I could slip into her voice pretty easily. And Gittel has been a gift that has kept on giving to me, because in sharing this story, I've begun to create connections I'd never dreamed of, both with the writing community, to people at the Emmanuel Synagogue in Oklahoma City who've reached out to me multiple times to speak, to people like you who've listened to my story, and a lot of people who've talked to me afterwards and have shared their incredible stories with me. So here I am talking to you, a person who successfully managed to avoid public speaking for over 60 years. It feels like the culmination of that journey of taking care of my past. And I hope my great-grandparents, wherever they are, approve. This journey was far longer than I anticipated, a lifetime really, but it has been so fulfilling. It seems that if you take care of your past, Ladar Vador, the past will take care of you too. So, one more slide. So those are some of the folks who characters in my book are based on, and I'm embarrassed to admit. That's me. That's also the baby me up at the top there. That is me sitting on my great-grandmother Garber's lap. She is next to my grandma Jen, and standing is my mother Gloria, also known as Gittel. Thank you so much. Please, if you have any questions, I hope you'll, or observations, or want to share anything, I hope you'll talk to me afterwards.
Thank you, Laurie. And don't forget, Gittel is out there on our table, and you can pick up a copy and take it home and be part of the family. Morning Star is built on all of our energy, love, and our giving. And as part of our giving, we love to have volunteers help us. We also need a little cash to keep the air conditioning on. So if you will join me in saying the offering prayer on the back of your songbook or on the screen. And while the baskets get passed, we're going to have some more music. So the offering prayer. Recognizing God as the source of my supply, I joyously give of God's abundance, which is blessed and multiplied through me, and so it is.
We are all a part of your ride.
awesome band. All right. I want to thank Laurie so much for sharing your spiritual path, which, we all get there somehow, and your willingness to really pick it up after so many years of kind of percolating there. I love that, and that's energizing in our middle age. We get to come back next week and hear another speaker, Greg Unterberger. I think I said that right. And he's been around. He's going to be on Zoom, but he's been around a lot. I've heard him speak before. Rising above the darkness, building spiritual resilience in the face of chaos. That pretty much says it all. So he's going to give us some tips and tricks how to survive and thrive in challenging times. I want to also say thank you to Gray and Mary and everybody who helped set up today, to those who pass the basket and do the financial work. I want to say thank you to Midge and Sacra and Amy and all those folks who bring us all together. And now for some announcements, we have gotten some new people interested in doing facilitating, and next Sunday after the service, we're going to have a 1-hour gathering for those people who've signed up to say they're interested in just doing a quick training. You have to be comfortable making mistakes in public. All right. It is real, folks. Okay, next weekend, there's a lot going on. There's a chocolate festival. You remember that? The chocolate festival's going on. Also, Ian Biddle, our very own, is playing at Midway at a summit. He's going to have also a hammered dulcimer playing with him, and we wrap our arms around Ian. He's lost his beloved Sheila, who passed away. And so anyway, if you have a chance on Saturday to go hear him play at Midway, that would be great. And then Mike has an announcement. Where's Mike? There he is. He's all the way in the back. He's going to come and talk to us about Janice Blakely.
I've mentioned this, and I put the date out, but her niece made this. She actually sent it to me a while back, and we'll print some out just to remind people, but I thought they did a lovely job. Her niece was so impressed with this building, and I can't remember if she came in or she just saw it from the outside, so she had that done somehow, I think one of her relatives. But again, it's April 11th, Saturday at 2 p.m., and all that Morning Star is going to have to provide are drinks, and maybe 3 or 4 people to show up a little before 2 and set up and make sure the chairs are in place. So if anyone wants to volunteer, come see me. I'll pick up the drinks, tea and lemonade, and that's really all they ask of us, so to help out with. And they're going to cater. I'm pretty sure they're going to cater it, so we don't have to bring food either. So that's it. Easy.
What's the date, Mike?
April 11th.
April 11th, at 2 p.m. here. Thank you, Mike, for being the contact on that, and for going to visit Janice when she was in memory care, and just being a good guy. He's a good guy. Also, I want to say thank you to Charlotte. That was a beautiful meditation. And our rock star, Remy. Remy. Sorry. I am so bad, but I can get away with that because I am not family. I love you, Remy. I think that's all of our announcements. Thank you so much. Let's do our prayer for protection, circle up, and do the peace song. So on the back of your songbook or on the screen, our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so it is.